If you are sitting and waiting for your opportunity, you might as well expect your opportunity not to happen or not to come. I think that people often think that you get quote unquote an opportunity to have some type of advantage to be able to get to where you want to be, but that's couldn't be farther from the truth. Woo! Welcome all to your space for everything empowerment. I'm your host, Tariq Williams, and not only I am Vision of Hope, but this is the we thing here. This is We Are Vision of Hope. Welcome to the Speaker Vision podcast. Let's have the conversation. Let's talk. So I'm jumping right into the episode here, and maybe we'll go through some other things that I'm doing here later on. But my original thought was my biggest pet peeve. What is my, but then I realized I probably have more than just one. And if you say that you only have one quote unquote pet peeve, then you're lying to yourself, not to who you're telling it to. So I'm probably one of the most laid back people you'll ever meet in your life. However, we all have different pet peeves and different things that are like, I don't know. But here's the situation. I have to explain to you all first how we got here, and this is going to talk about control. So, first and foremost, I'm going to tell you all a little bit of a story about me talking to a client about, or not a client, but one of my friends, and we were talking about something in particular. So, I'm going to give you a story about how we even got here, about me being, I don't want to say frustrated, maybe disappointed is a bit closer to where we're at. Um, but I'm going through some different feelings when I've been reflecting on this situation. So it has to do with control. So I'm going to go into a story that brought me here. After I go into that story, I'm going to talk a bit more about my personal experience with control and situations that I handle in my life, and finally get into some current events that are happening that some people really need to take control of their situation. So, so here's the deal. All right. So a few days ago, I was talking to one of my friends on the phone, and we talk about, how things are going, how work is going. We're talking for work. We're decompressing. So, okay, pro tip. All right. If you're work or you are a business owner or what have you, you need your people. You need your people to discuss your day with, to have conversations, to debrief, to just let it go. Because if you keep everything bottled in, it's going to stay bottled in, and then it's going to come out in a situation that's probably going to not serve you or the people around you. Pro tip. So we're talking on the phone. It's about, let's call about 6 in the evening or so. We're on the phone for maybe about 20, 30 minutes. But I can hear in his voice that he sounds down. All right. He sounds down. He's not feeling right. He's not his typical self. And not saying that everybody has to be on all the time and be super energetic, but you could tell that he was a bit off. And so I was just like, what's going on? Like, how are you? Like, I didn't want to jump into the difficulties, but I just had to check in. So there's a lot of gems on the episode today. So the second gem here is check in with your people. So I'm sitting there and we're talking on the phone, and you could tell that he's off and he's stressed, and we're all like kind of decompressing from our day, and he's telling me a bit about work and telling me a bit about the different things going on in his life. And then he said something to me that I was like, oh gosh. So he says to me, you know what, Tariq, I just gotta, you know, just sit and wait until I get my opportunity for what's next in my life. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, I just gotta sit and wait. So I said to him, okay, well, what do you want? And he's like, I don't really know what I want. I just gotta sit and wait for my opportunity. So I'm trying my hardest to No, I'm just listen on the podcast. You get me. So I'm listening to this, and I'm like, oh, we're talking about this, and so the conversation continued. But here's the situation. And here's what this means for you in your current situation, life, job, business, etc. If you are sitting and waiting for your opportunity, you might as well expect your opportunity not to happen or not to come. I think that people often think that opportunity is a specific advantage or a specific situation that maybe somebody else doesn't have, that you get quote unquote an opportunity to have some type of advantage to be able to get to where you want to be. But that's couldn't be farther from the truth. Opportunity is anything and everything. You actually have to do something to get an opportunity. They don't just fall from the sky. For my listening audience, I just picked up my cell phone and dropped it on the ground. No, nothing just happens like that. There was work that had to get done. There was something that had to happen. I've told y'all before, cars don't work unless you take the keys and you turn the ignition and you hit the gas. It just does not work. So what you need to understand is that you have to do something. There's no sitting waiting and an opportunity just drops in your lap. That's not a thing. And then leading into that, asking the question, what do you actually want? Well, then that is the real, I don't want to say problem here, but that's really where we're at. If you don't know what you actually want out of your life, if you don't know what you actually want, what your goals are, what you truly desire, and how you see yourself being successful, well, then I'm sorry. I apologize. But you need to figure it out and think about what that looks like for you, because if you got to want to figure out what exactly you want for yourself. And then once you figure out what you want for yourself, you have to put yourself in the position of actually getting the thing that you want for yourself. You got to do what that person would do. So if you want to be a director, I have a friend, shout out Jalen. He wanted to be a director, excuse me. And so he wanted to be a director. So what did he do? He moved to Los Angeles and did what directors do, quote unquote, and put himself in the situation, put himself in the rooms to then be able to direct short films, directing different types of series and everything like that. He put himself in the room. It wouldn't have happened if he just sat at home on the other side of the country. Well, New York definitely is a place for that stuff for sure. But he put himself where he felt like he needed to be to put himself in the room to get to the destination. It didn't just fall in his lap. He didn't just accidentally get a flight ticket to Los Angeles and accidentally get an apartment and like, what are you talking about here? I don't understand. And so, once again, the Speaker Vision podcast is your space for everything. Empowerment is also your space for honesty. And we're just being real here on the pod. So, like, I even think about a little bit more about my situation. I don't always talk about my blindness on the podcast, but it is warranted here. So the situation is this. I've told you all a bit about the fact that I needed coaching, I needed training to get to the next level in my life as a blind person, because I didn't know how blind people did certain things. I didn't know. I struggled. I thought I knew, but I didn't. And so I went to a training center that most people go to for about 9 or 10 months. And but I only had the opportunity to go there for 4 months. And so I went home with the full intention. And so the state and whatever you live in would typically support and pay for this. It's called vocational rehabilitation. So what happens is if you have a disability or certain situations like that, you are able to register with the state that you live in. And then from there, they're able to give you the training you need to get a job. So I was there for 4 months. I came home with the full intention. Like, I left my things there. I left clothes there. I left electronics there. I left different things at my apartment in Louisiana because I had the full intention And thought process, oh, I'm just going to end up back here anyway because I'm not done. So I go back home for the holidays. I talk to my uh, uh, state representative, my vocation rehabilitation counselor. When I say state representative, I don't mean the House of Reps. That's not what we're talking about here. But I was talking to my vocational rehabilitation counselor, and then I told her, okay, yeah, I need to go back. I need to get better at X, Y, and Z. I needed to get better at my technology. I needed to get better with, learning how to do things non-visually because I'm relying on what I can see too much and I'm struggling with certain situations. So I told her, I advocated. I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'm thinking like we're going to figure this out, and bing, bop, boom, bop, bing, bop, bam. But that's not what happened. What happened was they told me, no, we're not going to support you. And I said, well, I need this for all these different reasons. So I emailed her, sent a long letter to my counselor as well as her supervisor, the person in charge of the office. And they came to my house. I wrote up a whole paper for them, gave it to them. And I knew that, and this was about 2 months or so after. And I knew that I'd been waiting to go back for 2 months at this point. And I knew, I'm giving you all context while I'm saying that I knew. I knew that the meeting was not going to go the way that I wanted to when I gave her the folder with my justification that I had written. And she took it, and I could tell that she didn't read it at all and just put it to the side. I already knew what was up at that point. I already knew the situation. Okay. And I was like, oh, they don't support me. They don't support what I need. All right, excellent. What I'm going to have to do is continue. We're not giving up. Give up. I don't even know what give up mean. What those two words, give and up, means in that like sequence. Give to charity, give to my friends, give to people that care about me and that I care about, and just giving. And quick plug, free guide, get the money making playbook. We talk about taking action and getting what you things that you need, but the money making playbook, the mindset you need about making more money, get the money making playbook down below. Put that in the description. I'm giving that away for free. So give, right? Up. I don't up like upward trajectory for my life. Like give up. I just don't give up in that sequence. Doesn't make any sense to me. So I I still worked on what it meant to get back to Louisiana. So I was studying, I was talking to other advocates, I was doing talking to advocates, continuing to get better at my skills at my house by myself, continuing to just study and just get my knowledge better, writing, just continuing to read, all those different things that I could do to make myself better. When I went to Louisiana, I told myself that I was going to make myself better mentally, physically, and spiritually. That's just what it is. And I didn't waste, I'm not trying to waste my time here. Um, so I got to make the most of the moment. So with that being said, it took about 7 or so, 8 or more months, and I eventually was able to finish getting the training that I needed and the confidence that I needed to be able to have the mindset that I have today and really continue honing in on that. But once again, the mindset that I have today is one that continues growing. See, you have to understand you have to become a lifelong learner in your life, because as soon as you think that you have nowhere else to grow, you've been here on the podcast before. You start failing at that point and there's nothing else there for you. You got to continue growing every single day. Besides the point, nevertheless, I had to put in that work, the studying, the determination, the focus to get to where I needed to be, to put myself where I wanted for my life, to get the mindset, to understand what it meant to be who I was and who I was going to be. You have to take the action. You have to understand truly what it is you want. So if you're waiting and sitting for opportunity, that's not a thing. Oh, people just, oh, there are people that just get all the things. No. Anything worth having, the things that you want, it won't just happen. So, current event story quickly. Current event story as we get ready to wrap up here. Um, I don't talk a lot about sports on the podcast, but if you know me personally, if you've been showing up here, you know that sports are a thing that I enjoy. Oh, you're a blind person. How do you watch sports? We can talk about that in another episode if you like. Uh, leave it in the comments. Let me know what you think. And I have no problem talking about my blindness and how I do things. Besides the point, nevertheless. So, quick sports situation that happened recently. There is, there was a, is, was, you decide. Doing my best English major impression currently. Um, a college football player right now by the name of Shador Sanders. If you're familiar with Deion Sanders, famous football player, um, Shador Sanders is his son. I'm not going to get into very specific situations of attitude here or anything like that, but there's a lesson that Shador needs to understand right now, and we're going to go over that. So Shador Sanders, so every year, NFL, NBA, take your pick of the sport, college players, different players that want to become professional, they enter the draft. And so they enter the draft with the hopes of being able to get into the league and play professionally in whatever sport that might be. Door Sanders had a great season. Several touchdowns, like had a great year the past couple years. He had a great season. And so he was a projected top two pick in the league. First round, top two pick, thinking that he could go first pick out of all the players entering or going second. Shador Sanders did not end up getting picked at that point in time, to the point where in the third round of the NFL draft, somebody called him, and what happens is the team announces that you are getting drafted, but you typically get a phone call from the coach or the general manager or the president or the owner of said team before you get drafted and get picked to a particular team. And Shador Sanders had a draft party on the first day of draft night, and the NFL draft takes place over a few days. And he thought he was going to go on day one. On day two, he gets a phone call from the New Orleans Saints general manager. And he says, hello, this is the general manager of the New Orleans Saints, and we're getting ready to take you here with our next pick here in the third round. And Shador says, oh, thanks, like I've been waiting for this. And they're going back and forth, but then the phone call sounds a little bit weird because after that, the individual on the phone says, well, actually, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer because we're not drafting you. And they're like, he's like, what? How did you even get this number? And they hang up on him. He got prank called for the moment that was going to change his life. Somebody ended up prank calling. We're not going to get into who did it or anything like that here. Feel free. You have Google. But he got prank called. And basically, somebody was in the process of taking away one of the biggest moments of his entire life. 2 rounds later, with I believe it was the 144th pick of the NFL draft, he was finally selected. Someone that was projected to go by all news outlets and everything like that to go second went 144th on day three instead of day one. There was a party, you dressed up in your suit and all the things to be excited to get drafted, and he did not until after his party and draft party and all those different things. Tariq, why do you bring up this story? Great question. I'd love to tell you. It's time for Shador Sanders to take control. The prank call, the fact that he was projected to be second, you can't let that weigh over you. Let it fuel you, Shador. Let it fuel you to be the best player. Let everybody else know that he got picked, I believe, 144th. There were 143 mistakes before you were selected. Be the transcendent talent that you can be. Be the example. Be the leader. Be the optimal version of what it means to be in your position. Be the best. But that does not just happen by sitting and waiting. Famous philosopher LL Cool J. Let me redo that. Famous philosopher LL Cool J once stated, "I can't sit and wait for my princess to arrive. I gotta struggle and fight to keep my dream alive." We can't sit and wait. We have to struggle and fight to keep our dreams alive. That outcome was not what Shador wanted, but if he fights and does the work, he can become one of the best and prove there's 143 other mistakes. He understands what he wants. He wanted to be in the NFL football league. He got it. He's there. Do the most with what you've created for yourself. The opportunity, the work you've done has not gone in vain. The work that I had to take in to get back to the place where I had to get my mindset right and learn the skills I needed to learn, it was a mindset. It had nothing to do with blindness skills to begin with. I needed the mindset to get to where I needed to be. I needed to be coached. I needed to grow. And nobody was going to take that away from me. So getting back to how we got here, I'm just going to sit and wait for my opportunity, you know? If you are sitting and waiting for the opportunity and not putting in any work, you will never get, quote unquote, the opportunity. This is the Speak Your Vision podcast, your space for everything empowerment. And so I'm going to empower you today to take control of what you want for your life. I'm going to empower you today to take control of your power, to get to where you want to be, to not only wait for opportunities. Excuse me, we don't do that. What am I talking about? There's no waiting for opportunities. Every day is an opportunity. But we're not just waiting. We're actually literally creating our opportunity. These things are not an accident. Shador, Tariq, other people I talk about here on the podcast today, take control, take over your power. We got it. Let's go make it happen. Check out the money-making playbook. I'll leave it linked down below. And so wrap your head around, get it. It's free. That's what we're talking about here and what it means to really just recognize your value. That's what we talked about there on the free guide. Go check it out down below. Send me a message, DM, www.wearevisionofhope.com for coaching. Links down below. Reach out to me on all social media platforms. Take control, take over. You know what we got to do here. Not only I am Vision of Hope, but we are Vision of Hope. This is the Speak Your Vision podcast. You are the listener. We are all going to make it happen. Let's get it.